Tonight, several breaking stories as we come on the air. The flash flood emergency in Florida at this hour. A wall of water coming down, up to 20 inches of rain. The damaging winds, a tornado warning, and now the extreme heat moving into the east. Also, just 100 miles off Florida, Russian warships, including a nuclear submarine. And here in the U.S., the deadly bus hijacking. We now know what happened inside that bus. First tonight, the torrential rain emergency in Florida. Miami to Fort Lauderdale to Sarasota. Underwater tonight. Dangerous driving. Part of I-95 shut down. Destructive winds bringing trees down, and that tornado warning, and the rest of the east set to get hit with potentially record high temperatures. Tonight, the two American tourists electrocuted in a jacuzzi at a resort in Mexico. One is dead, the other injured. The dramatic video tonight authorities are now studying. In Atlanta tonight, inside that deadly bus hijacking, the man who was killed and what happened on that bus, speeding through 2 counties. You'll hear the emergency calls, passengers trapped on the bus. Off Florida tonight, the Russian warships steaming into Havana Bay, including a nuclear-powered submarine. Tonight, the U.S. tracking this with a show of force, the first time in 16 years. Martha Raddatz with late reporting. Tonight, a major escalation on Israel's northern border. The Iranian-backed Hezbollah launching more than 200 rockets in just a matter of hours. Meanwhile, back in the U.S. tonight, authorities describing a chilling anti-Semitic scene on the New York City subway. Protesters asking, quote, Zionists to raise their hands and get off the train. Others to facing the home of a museum director who is Jewish. Aaron Katersky with what the mayor is saying tonight. And tonight here, we celebrate Mr. Clutch, a true basketball icon, Hall of Famer, Jerry West.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening. It is great to have you with us here on a very busy Wednesday night. Several developing headlines as we come on. The Russian warships just about 100 miles off Florida tonight, pulling into Havana Bay. The U.S. responding with a show of force. Martha Raddatz standing by. Also, those 2 American tourists electrocuted in a jacuzzi while on vacation. One of them has died. But we do begin tonight with the life-threatening conditions in Florida at this hour. A flash flood emergency after torrential rains. Several inches already. Up to 20 inches could fall during this storm. Treacherous driving on I-95 near Miami. Visibility near zero right there. Part of that major highway shut down for a time. Sarasota tonight underwater. 4 inches of rain in just 1 hour. This fire truck right here barely making its way through. Tornado warnings with destructive winds bringing trees down in Martin County north of West Palm Beach. The rain and the winds causing airport delays and cancellations. More than 1,000 flights canceled or delayed at airports in South Florida. We're also tracking this storm, not over yet, and the extreme heat moving into the east, potentially record high temperatures up and down the East Coast. ABC's Victor Oquendo leading us off from Miami tonight.
Tonight, sheets of torrential rain flooding roads, stranding vehicles, inundating the Sunshine State. A flash flood emergency north of Miami. The National Weather Service warning of life-threatening conditions. 4 to 6 inches of rain in an hour in spots.
It's all just lining up like train on a tracks, going over the same areas over and over again.
Part of Interstate 95, that major north-south artery, shut down due to flooding. Crews using vacuum trucks racing to clear debris from storm drains across the area. Driving simply treacherous.
I could not see behind me or in front of me, so we need to drive very slow.
Air travel snarled. More than 1,000 flights delayed or canceled entirely at South Florida airports. The system fueled by tropical moisture, even spawning a tornado warning in Martin County. High winds taking out huge trees. It's been pouring all over the state for days. This fire truck barely making it down the street in Sarasota after nearly 8 inches fell there, nearly 4 coming in just 1 hour. Experts say our changing climate is causing rainfall events like these to become more frequent and more intense.
David, we're near downtown Miami where the water keeps on rising. Here it's almost up to my knees, but it only gets worse further down the street where all these cars are flooded. You can also see that school bus. This is not over yet. Let's go to the map. All of South Florida is under a flood watch through at least tomorrow. Up to 10 inches of additional rain possible through Saturday. And we're also tracking the heat that's building in the east. Mid to upper 90s from the southeast up to the mid-Atlantic by Friday. Now, just north of us in Fort Lauderdale, they have declared a state of emergency. When all is said and done here, some areas could see up to 20 inches of rain. David?
Just an extraordinary scene playing out there in South Florida. Victor, thank you. Meantime, just about 100 miles from Florida tonight, 4 Russian warships steaming into Havana Bay, including a nuclear-powered submarine. The U.S. tracking this with a show of force. They are set for military drills, these Russian ships, with Cuba for the first time in 16 years. ABC's Martha Raddatz reporting tonight.
Tonight, a brazen display of Russian military force just over 100 miles from Florida's coast. Russia's longtime ally, Cuba, welcoming 4 Russian warships, including a nuclear-powered submarine with a 21-cannon salute. As Russian military drills begin in the Caribbean nation for the first time in 16 years. The Russians say the ships have already conducted drills in the Atlantic, simulating long-range missile strikes aimed at targets more than 300 miles away. Although Russian ships routinely dock in Havana, this military exercise is a clear provocation that the Pentagon is seeking to downplay.
We, of course, take it seriously, but these exercises don't pose a threat to the United States.
The exercises come as the Biden administration dramatically widens sanctions on Moscow, and they follow Vladimir Putin's threats in response to the U.S. giving permission to Ukraine to use U.S.-supplied weapons to hit Russian targets near Ukraine's border. David, the U.S. Navy and Canadian Navy have been shadowing the Russians' movements with their own warships. Tonight, a U.S. official saying the Russian ships will remain near Cuba for several days before making their way to Venezuela. David?
This is really quite something. Martha Raddatz live in Washington. Martha, thank you. We have learned tonight that 2 American tourists from Texas were electrocuted in a jacuzzi at a resort in Mexico. One was killed, the other injured. The desperate attempt to help them and the difficult video tonight authorities are now studying. Here's Matt Gutman.
Tonight, this dramatic video showing the moments 2 Americans are believed to have been electrocuted in a hot tub at a Mexico resort. Bystanders screaming for help as one person is seen pulled to safety. Amidst the chaos on that pool deck, you can see someone else administering CPR. The Sonora Attorney General says it's investigating the incident, stating 43-year-old Jorge was killed and 35-year-old Lizette injured. As per policy, they used only the victims' first names. Sources telling ABC News they were a couple from El Paso, Texas. A tragic incident unfolding Tuesday evening at the Sonoran Sea Resort near Puerto Peñasco. The Attorney General adding that forensic analysis will be conducted to determine the origin of the electrical failure.
David, we've reached out multiple times to the resort for comment, but have not heard back. Now, the experts say if you are in a hot tub or a pool and you feel any sort of electrical current, get out immediately and try to do so without touching any of the metal railings or ladder. David.
Matt Gutman tonight. Thank you, Matt. We also have new reporting here involving that deadly bus hijacking in Atlanta. The man who was killed on that bus and what played out with passengers trapped, watching it all unfold in horror as that bus sped through 2 counties. ABC's Faith Abube from Atlanta.
New details on what led to a wild police chase in downtown Atlanta during rush hour Tuesday.
I think there's someone taking the bus hostage.
Investigators say 39-year-old suspect Joseph Greer, with 19 prior arrests, was in a fight with another passenger. The passenger pulled out a gun, and that's when they say Greer grabbed the weapon, shot him, and then took the bus full of commuters hostage.
APD is working a possible hijack Gwinnett County bus. Someone has the driver hostage, possibly will not let them stop the bus.
Watch as the bus, displaying emergency on the digital screen, zigzags through traffic, sideswiping cars as it maneuvers around other drivers. Just moments before the deadly bus chase, someone who appears to be Greer caught on camera at the scene of another deadly shooting downtown, just blocks away.
Crazy. And then the cop talked to him, he ran. That's when the whole so.
The convicted felon telling news media he's bipolar and has been without his medication. The victim, 58-year-old Ernest Bird, died at the hospital. His family saying he's survived by 7 children and 7 grandchildren. Paulette Gilbert was also on that bus.
We're very shaken, and it was a really traumatic thing.
Talking to ABC affiliate WSB at the scene.
It's tough. Like, we can't go into details what happened, but it was true. It was something that we'll never forget.
And David, tonight, Greer is behind bars facing more than a dozen charges. In the meantime, though, the DA's office is asking for another prosecutor to step in because one of their employees was a victim and a witness in this incident. David.
Faith Abube in Atlanta. Thank you, Faith.